If you are wondering who that next legend you should unlock is, or maybe your first legend to unlock, I got you covered, as today we are going to rank every legend based on their overall potential in-game to perform and the possibility for that legend to simply make you a better player. We are going to go from worst to best, but as always, this is just a starting point or recommendation, and you should still get the legend that you want to unlock and not what some random basement dweller on the internet tells you to get. Kicking us off and taking the bottom spot is going to be one of my current mains in my previous #1 main, and it is Crypto. Crypto is a great legend who is still misunderstood, but for a new player, a beginner, or someone just looking to improve, Crypto is the last legend that I do think you should get. There's just so much that you have to do on Crypto, and unless you have a ton of Apex experience, and specifically good in-game sense, he just is not worth the struggle. You really got to do a lot of actions per minute, as I like to call it, between seeing who's around, using that drone to recon, using that drone to pick up cars, revive teammates, scan enemies remotely. I think it's simply just too much for a new player to handle. At the end of it though, if you do want a very good recon legend who is great to find out who's around, has a lot of that utility, then he is pretty good. He's also great to EMP push teams and be pretty aggressive, but again, there's just a little bit too much to maintain, and I think he's going to hurt your growth as a player more than help. A legend who should be getting some changes in the very near future is going to be Revenant, but until this does happen, I think Revenant is a pretty poor legend to unlock, at least in the earlier picks. He is Apex's resident assassin and flanker legend, which is all because of that passive higher climbing. So if you are into climbing and getting angles, this is a good legend for you to pick, but really, his best aspect in my opinion is going to be the tactical, which stops ability usage from enemies. It can often catch players off guard. Revenant's death totem I think is pretty mid, but if you do want to make pushes with a spot to respawn at, then it can be fine for this, but I find oftentimes Revenant's death totem is just not worth the hassle, and more times it's a liability than it is actually going to help you out. Overall, I would skip Revenant for now, but stay tuned as he might be getting a really big buff quite soon. If this does happen, I'll let you know my thoughts in the pinned comment down below. Number 16 is going to be Gas Daddy, and while Caustic has been both better and worse in Apex, Caustic is in kind of an odd spot right now. For me, he's the worst of the defensive legends, but Caustic is really all about gas damage and slowing enemies down, which is pretty unique. He also mixes in together this defensive playstyle with his traps and aggression via that ultimate gas grenade, which can be pretty nice at times when you do gotta flip that switch and push enemy teams. However, in pubs, Caustic feels slow and unnecessary, which gives him the low rating for me. If you are solely playing ranked, which probably isn't too many people if you are just starting out and you need to get to level 50, he is great for this, and I would probably put him somewhere around top 8, top 10, but simply again, there are just better choices. Next up is going to be Ashe, and she's a pretty solid legend if you are looking to find more fights in game through that passive ability, which does allow her to mark enemy death boxes on the map. You can also use this information in ranked if you want to avoid fights and get better placement. I do think that this is mostly just a convenience tool, and good in-game sense can give you the same information. Ashe's power really lies in her ultimate ability, the Phase Breach, which is a one-way portal to make huge plays on enemy teams or escape out of danger at a moment's notice. Her tactical is kind of forgettable, but occasionally you can snare someone and trip them up, and it can be okay for this. Overall, Ashe is a fine legend, but again, there are many legends that are just a little bit better that do very similar things. The most unique legend in the entire game is hands down Mirage. No one else in Apex can really do what he does. He's all about tricking players and making enemies feel kind of dumb when they can't locate that real Mirage. He does this through both the tactical decoy that he can send out to mimic his movements and that ultimate ability which spawns 5 clones of himself. He's not necessarily the most powerful legend in the game right now, but in new player lobbies or lower skilled lobbies, if you are just starting out, people have a hard time dealing with the Mirage clones, and he can be pretty good for this. At the end of it though, he's just not the meta, and there are others that are better. His passive invisible revive is also kind of nice. It has a little support role in there, but it isn't always going to be useful. I would try Mirage if you are looking for a completely unique Apex experience. Number 13 is our first purely assault-based legend who is all about enhancing the team's weapons and offensive power, and it is Ballistic. Ballistic is pretty solid for a combat legend, but he does lack a lot of utility that many of the other legends can give, outside of course, enhancing the team's weapons. And also for a new player, if you are struggling with aim and you are trying to get used to Apex's weapons, I don't know if enhancing the weapons with Ballistic is really going to be the right play. If you do want a good pub legend, Ballistic can be okay for this, but if you do want a ranked legend, I would look elsewhere. If you are looking to get those 4Ks, enhance your damage output while also having a more defensive character, then Rampart is a great option. Rampart is all about her tactical walls, which can boost damage by 20% when shooting through the amped portion, but they also are great to create cover when none is around or to help fortify a building. Rampart also has Sheila, which is a minigun that can go absolutely crazy on enemies if you do use it properly. I will say, I think the minigun is more of a utility tool rather than a purely offensive ability. It's great to break doors, apply pressure, and stop enemies from moving into your sight lines. Rampart does honestly require a very tactical play and a fairly smart or experienced player who understands positioning and angles, so I don't think she's the best for a newer or less experienced players, but her kit is at least simple to use, which does make her approachable but tougher to master. And if you do want someone that is good in both pubs and ranked, I could see you unlocking her as your 3rd or 4th legend in the game. If you are looking for a great hybrid play legend, Vantage is one of the more unique legends that does mix together recon, assault, and movement, and really no one else in the game does mix these 3 properties together. She has a passive to see how many players are alive on a squad and their status, that ultimate sniper to open fights and pressure enemies, and then a tactical ability to move in, make plays, or reposition. If you are looking to be a more informed player who also enjoys a semi-longer range playstyle, then Vantage is probably one of the only legends who can utilize this in her kit. I will say that since Vantage kind of does all of these things in her kit, she doesn't really do any specific one of them better than other legends. There's better recon legends, there's better assault legends, and of course, there are better movement legends in Apex. But if you want a little bit of everything, then try her out. Starting off the top 10 is going to be Wattson, who for me is one of Apex's most satisfying defensive legends, with also a little support in there as well. She's one of the most unique legends in the game, as her passive helps her get that ultimate generator back, which does help stop incoming damage and recharge shields. And then the generator also helps her tactical come back faster, which does mean she can put more fences down just a little bit quicker. This type of play allows for continually defending the team and also supporting them with the gen, which does let her control a lot more area than most. She is an incredible ranked legend. If you are solely going to play ranked, I would probably put her in the top 3, but she isn't really a pub player due to her general slower playstyle. Arguably, she's one of the more challenging legends in the game as well, which is why she is only number 10 on my list for those who you should unlock. He might be old, but he's definitely no slouch, and this is Season 1's Octane, who is still a great choice for players if you are looking to simplify the Apex experience. Octane is going to let you focus on gun skill, which is so important, while also giving you some extra movement, which is what Apex is best known for, and newer players are generally less mobile, which is going to help you out. Octane is a great legend if you are just struggling or if you are overwhelmed with the Apex experience, and I know there's a lot of legends out there. You don't need to overthink your abilities, and he just lets you focus on your gun skill, your positioning, while having some pretty decent abilities with the stim, a passive health regen, and that jump pad. Octane is not really a ranked legend due to the lack of team support or other capabilities, but he is an incredibly fun pub legend, and I do think Octane is one of the better legends if you are looking to improve your gun skill. Another legend who is good to make some aggressive plays, and somewhat like Wattson, where all of her abilities do work together, is going to be Mad Maggie. However, she is not a defensive legend. She is going to be your pure assault or entry fragger legend. She has the tactical drill to force movement, and then the passive, which will allow her to see enemies through walls briefly when they do take damage, and then you can drop that ultimate wrecking ball down to displace enemies even further and push up pretty quickly. Mad Maggie isn't really the top of the meta legend in terms of overall gameplay in Apex, but if you want a good legend to open up fights and make some big plays for your team, you should add an entry fragger like Mad Maggie to your arsenal. A previous powerhouse legend who used to be a must-pick legend is going to be Valkyrie. Valkyrie is still great today, but I do think there are some better options depending on what you are looking for. All Valkyrie's abilities are great. She excels in combat via her jetpack and the tactical to stun and then make plays on enemies. Her ultimate to rotate and get fights all game long is really great in pubs or to get a little bit more of a safer rotation at the end game of a ranked match. I do think that Valkyrie kind of favors pubs these days, as you do have that evac tower, which somewhat negates her need to be in the game right now. That doesn't mean she's bad, but it does make her slip down a couple spots on my list. I would pick Valkyrie if you are looking for one of the more free-flowing legends in the game who does have some pretty good movement, and all of her abilities are pretty solid. Narrowly missing out the top 5, and a legend who is about to get nerfed as of the posting of this video, is going to be Seer. Seer is all about increasing your awareness through that passive ability, tactical, and ultimate abilities, which is pretty good if you are a newer or less experienced player, as generally finding enemies and just seeing players if you are new to the game can be pretty difficult. Seer is pretty good when it comes to a team fighting legend via that tactical and ultimate ability, but I should mention he's about to lose the ability to cancel heals and cancel revives on enemies, which is pretty massive. This does switch switch him up, and he is going to be able to get a Revenant-like silence ability where he is going to cancel ability usage and stop ability usage on enemies for about 10 seconds. Now, this kind of transfers Seer from this combat fighting legend, clutch playmaker, to someone who is more of a utility recon legend where he is just going to lock down enemies' abilities and stop them from making huge plays for about 10 seconds. I do think Seer is still going to be a good combat team fighting legend, and he is more of a ranked legend than pub legend, but he is viable in both. If you want an alternate recon legend to Bloodhound, because maybe you don't love Bloodhound as the default legend, then you could look at Seer to unlock, but honestly, I think Bloodhound is probably just the better recon legend now. As we go into the top 5 and after this video, if you want more on all the legends in terms of how to play them, I have a playlist in the pinned comment down below. Go check that out. It contains an in-depth guide for every single legend in Apex. Also hit that like button. I greatly appreciate the support. Rounding out the top 5 is going to be Catalyst. Catalyst is a really solid hybrid legend these days for a mix of defensive and offensive capability. This really all comes down to her passive tactical combo to defend areas, which is pretty strong as you can fortify doorways continually and create cover out of really no cover if a door is missing. She also has the tactical to stop enemies from pushing in or to get enemies that are keeping on doors off of them, which increases her offensive playmaking possibilities. And then if this is not enough, she does have her ultimate wall to rotate late game when cover is so critical. She can create some sort of concealment for the team. Catalyst, I do think, shines a little bit more in ranked, but she's still pretty good in pubs, and I do think Catalyst pick rate is going to go even higher and higher as the seasons progress. Number 4 on my list is a legend who is arguably the best legend in the game, just not necessarily the most fun legend, which is why he isn't the first pick, and plus, I don't think he is the easiest legend. This is going to be Newcastle. Newcastle functions very similar to Lifeline, which you already have unlocked, which does mean you do have that support or revive character for free, and maybe Newcastle is not the first legend that you should unlock. However, if you do go with Newcastle, he is incredible as an all-around player in the game. If you want to be heavily relied on, be the squad savior, then he is great. You have that passive to move teammates around, and you can support them even further with the tactical wall so they are not getting re-knocked when they do get up. And you do have the ultimate castle wall to get that center zone and defend and control areas like none other. Newcastle is definitely a better ranked legend due to his versatility, and I highly recommend you look at him if you are looking to unlock a legend. Just again, remember, you do have Lifeline, which does function somewhat similar to Newcastle, and you may want to wait on unlocking him till a little bit later. One of the most underrated and most useful things in the game is going to be grenades, and this does mean Fuse is getting the bronze spot or the 3rd spot on my list of legends that you should be unlocking. Arguably, I would say that grenades in Apex are one of the most important aspects of the game, as they are huge for forcing movement and just getting teams out of areas when they do have that superior positioning. Fuse's tactical and ultimate are also great to pressure enemies via the tactical, which you can use continually all game long. You can farm a ton of damage with this. And of course, the ultimate mother load is great to trap enemies, scan them, or again, force movement on them. I do think Fuse is more of a casual legend for pubs and maybe not the best for ranked, as he doesn't have any direct support or utility, but he is still a great option in Apex. He may not be the top legend in the game, a super meta legend, but because Fuse is so useful for a new player, I do recommend that you look at him. He's very good, and honestly, he's a lot of fun to keep pressuring enemies and farm up a lot of damage. Loba is the second legend I do recommend that you unlock. She is an incredibly useful legend with 0 skill required to support the team and just be useful or helpful. You can get that loot all game long through her black market, which means more fighting and less time running around picking up items, which is huge for a new player. You want to be taking more fights because this is where you are actually going to improve. Her passive to see high tier loot through walls is pretty nice during the early game as well, which means you're going to get better stuff off that drop, and you are going to have a better chance at surviving because your loot is a little bit better. Loba also has a little bit of movement in there with her tactical bracelet, which is going to help a little bit with surviving and getting away if you do need to. While Loba is useful in pubs to get more fights and spend less time looting, she's also incredible in ranked, where late game, maybe you can't move around and get loot as much. You can just drop that black market down, get more heals, get more ammo, and you will be good to go all game long. Taking the top spot for me is going to be Horizon. There is no other legend in Apex that is quite like Horizon, with the incredible combat usefulness that she does have, and of course, her ability to survive a little bit longer than most. She has top tier movement and playmaking with the tactical lift and her ultimate black hole to drop it on enemies and catch them off guard. Horizon is great in pubs and ranked, which is cool if you do want to dabble in both modes. I do think Horizon is one of the first, if not the first legend you should be unlocking if you are looking to just increase your fighting and combat potential So she's not necessarily the easiest legend in the game, but she is so useful. And in the long run, Horizon's going to make you move a little bit quicker and be a little bit more mobile, which is absolutely needed for a new player or a less experienced player. Be sure to check out this video right here if you want even more ways to improve your skills. Hit that like button, sub for more, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.